when I walked into a room, I was often the only female, right, in a meeting. Um, a lot of the times I felt like my voice was assumed to be lesser than the others in the room, right?
This is Impact Economy, the female frontier, where we talk with career women to determine the challenges they face and the risks they take. Being a woman in today's working world comes with many challenges, but these women think beyond themselves to connect their career to meaningful social impact. Hi everyone! If you don't know me yet, my name is Siona Mehta and I'm a high school student. This series started with me trying to learn more about different career paths and women in different stages of their lives, but it turned into so much more. And I wanted to share this information with other like-minded young women to help them discover their own passions and confidence. Today we have Lucy Huang. I interviewed her mid-August about her career and the challenges that she's faced. She works as the Chief Product Officer in a health tech startup company. In this interview, she shares tons of quotable moments and amazing pieces of advice. So let's go.
So can you tell us about your current role and how you got there?
Sure. So my current role is Chief Product Officer with a health tech startup company called Filio Health. And how I got there, in tech and anything you actually do in business, it really is just like who you know and, the experiences that you gain along the way. And how I got here is just pure networking, right? Just talking from one person to another and hearing that there's a need for, business, product, leadership experience at this new startup called Filio Health. And I actually started consulting for them over a year ago, just very part-time. Well, actually, first consulting, just a couple hours a week. And then it became, okay, we need your help. Could you do, half a day, right, each day? And I did that. And they said, okay, how about just full-time? Right? So it really is just, who you know and, the experiences that you have along the way.
And if you don't mind, what was your educational journey to get to that point?
Educational journey, that's a really good question. I actually am trained as an electrical engineer, and I have both my bachelor's as well as my master's degree. I didn't go straight from my bachelor's in electrical engineering straight into master's in electrical engineering. I actually started working first at what was called GTE, but it's now Verizon, right? They merged, the two companies merged and they become Verizon. And while I was there during my first and second year, one of my mentors, I asked him, hey, I'd like to get my graduate degree. What should I do? And he recommended that I pursue my technical degree further. So that's how I went to school and worked full time at the same time to get my master's in electrical engineering. So that was a lot of fun. And the company paid for it though. So that was, that was like a huge incentive. Hey, if somebody's going to pay for your education for you to, gain additional studies, I wasn't going to say no.
That's great. So you did mention networking, and I know that a lot of people, especially my age, get, I guess, socially nervous when trying to talk to other people, or they don't exactly know how to form those connections. So what advice would you have for them?
Networking, it really is just being you, honestly, right? There's really I know there are people that, so, okay, the professional answer is really try to get yourself out there, be prepared, right? Make sure, I noticed that you have a LinkedIn profile. That's excellent, right? And then don't be shy about reaching out and, following people or connecting with people on LinkedIn. You never know who's willing to connect and help you along the way. And then the rest of it is just being you. I would just say in terms of networking, a lot of the times, like when you're less confident and younger and starting out, it's like, oh no, they're going to think it's weird if I reach out. They're going to think if I reach out and ask questions out of the blue, they're just not going to respond to me. It's okay. Some people won't respond, right? If you try to connect with someone, some people might not respond. Some people will. But if you don't take that chance, and if you don't just go, you know what do I have to lose? If they don't respond, move on to the next person, right? That, if you can reach out to 3 people and 1 person, you make that connection, right? And hey, that's 1 more connection than you made than if you didn't try. So that's really the advice I have is, especially when you're young, you guys have the benefit of not being embarrassed, right? Like, you're young, you can be a little more naive, and it's okay, right? And it's so, and take advantage of it. I really actually believe in that. In my younger years, I really prescribe to the, I'm just going to chalk it up to, if anybody says, well, that's weird, like, why did you reach out to me, or why did you do that? It's like, well, you know what? I'm young. I don't know any better, right? But it actually worked out well, because sometimes when you take that approach of, well, let's just do it, right? You really benefit from that. And I'll use an example. This isn't necessarily networking, but it's just like, just get out there and do whatever you think, right? And be bold. That's how I actually got my first job, right? Coming out of college. Back in the day, it's less about LinkedIn. It was less about, applying for jobs online, right? At my school, which was University of Illinois in Champaign-Urbana, a lot of companies would come and recruit our like engineering students. And so, I would always know, like, okay, these are the companies coming in. And usually they basically do half-an-hour interview slots, and they were very competitive and very hard to sign up for. Like, you have to be there first come, first serve. And if you don't sign up, you don't have that slot, because their recruiters are only there for a day, and they go from 8:30 to about 4:30, right? And so I actually took the approach, I know they usually end at 4:30, but the flight out is not until 7:30. So they have about 3 hours to finish up their paperwork, go eat dinner, and go to the airport, right? And catch their flight. So I started taking the approach of, if I didn't get a slot, it's okay. I'm just going to show up at 4:30. So, or 4 o'clock, and just knock on people's doors. And this is the whole approach, is some of them didn't like it. Some of these companies were like, no, you didn't sign up for it. You lost out. So no, we're not going to interview you. So, okay, fine. I go away. I didn't really lose anything. I tried, right? But the first job, which is DTE and then Verizon, I really actually wanted that job. And I knocked on that door and said, hey, I know I really tried, couldn't get a slot, but you would just have half an hour for me and hear me out. And it actually went really well, because in that moment, what they actually saw was a naive kid who just gave it a shot. Yeah, right? Who's bold enough to give it a shot. And it actually made an impression, right? I was the last person to interview, which was the last person that he took notes on, right? Mm-hmm. And it's easier to make that impression. And I got the second interview. And when I showed up at the second interview, the other interviewers were like, yeah, we heard about you. We know what you did. So in that case, like, it actually worked out. It made an impression. So that's all I'll say in terms of networking. Just don't be shy. Go up there, talk to them, be bold.
You mentioned your original kind of interest was in the tech industry and engineering, and then you moved on to business. So I guess what first sparked your interest in your field or your industry about technology, and then why did you change that eventually?
This is one advice I would give, is like, there is no straight line, right? Your career does not have to be a straight line. Just follow your curiosity and your interests. I started in electrical engineering because probably like you and some others, I really liked the math and sciences. And I just felt like I had inclination towards more of this, just scientific and mathematical fields. And engineering seemed like, it was interesting to me. So more of that problem solving. So I got into it. And I enjoyed my initial career in electrical engineering for about 12 years, right, in the tech industry. And and what I actually found wasn't my interests weren't like coding or actually designing, right? Um, I felt that pretty confining, and I started very early on. I think I was an engineer for all but like 3 years, maybe less, right? Very early on, I felt myself thinking more, okay, who's going to be using this, right? How do we sell this? How do we market? How do we what's the whole business around this, right? And so that's actually when I got into product management. So it's a pretty natural trajectory to go from engineering to product management, because you still need to deeply understand the technology and the product itself. But product management really gets you to look at more holistically all the different things that you want to be able to manage about that product to ensure the product's success, right? Like, how do you market? How do you sell? How do you operate? What are the supplies, right? What we call supply chain, all of that. And so I didn't spend that much time being an engineer, right? Most of it was actually in product management, which is business, right? And I think after 12 years, it was more out of curiosity. I thought to myself, I can stay using my business and technical skills. Really, it's technical skills. Really, I call it problem solving skills. Right? It applies to any industry. I thought, and in technology at that time, it was a whole game of faster, cheaper, and smaller. Right? And it's still kind of like this right now. And I kept seeing it. It was like a rinse and repeat. Okay, get it smaller, get it cheaper, get it faster, and it just all over again. And I thought, after 12 years of that, you know what else is out there? And it's really the curiosity that led me to, let's go completely non-tech. Let's see if I can make something of it, right, on my own. And that's how I got into really like being a businesswoman, right? Opening stores, right? And selling things that are completely not technology. And I did that for 12 years. And it really kind of filled my cup of, and tested, really challenged myself to really, do you really know how to operate a business? Are you really a business person, right? And there was a lot that I was deeply humbled, right? I went into it having managed technical businesses and technical budgets, right? And I thought, oh, nothing to it to be an entrepreneur. How could it be that hard, right? I was managing like multi-$100 budgets and businesses, in terms of revenue. And I thought, this is like, less than $1 million to start with. How difficult could that be? And I could not be more wrong in terms of how difficult it was to actually strike out on your own, be an entrepreneur, and operate businesses. So, short answer for you is, don't ever think it's a straight line, and just follow your curiosity. And don't ever think like, well, I didn't major in this. This is not what I did. Just give it a shot. That's what I would say in anything. It's give it a shot. And in terms of business, it really is just good common sense. And there are a lot of elitists out there that will, like, for example, lawyers, right? Like, lawyers are the smartest and they have the hardest job in the whole world, right? Same thing with doctors. Will say the same thing, right? Like, doctors, like we're doctors, we're the smartest. Or engineers will do the same, right? Or business people, finance people, private equity. What I would say in challenge to all of that is, it's actually all the same. And if good business is just good business, no matter what you're selling, whether it's technology or healthcare services or right, legal services, it is exactly all the same. You're just selling something different. That's all. So I know that's a long answer, but
no, I love it. Very helpful. And you mentioned all these difficulties that you might go through, or things that are humbling, perhaps, but you stay with it. And what is the thing that you most enjoy about what you're doing right now that makes you want to continue to do it and to love it as much as you do?
It's actually just problem solving. All of this, everything, right? Including having your own business, including previous jobs that I've had, and today's job, which is as at a startup where I lead product development. It's the common theme here is seeing a problem. It's a puzzle, and the satisfaction of solving it and having a positive result out of it. That's really what I see in all of it. It's not money. Like, and everybody's different, right? It's not money. It's not prestige. It's not I'm climbing my whatever ladder it might be, right? And some people that actually does motivate them. But to me, at the end of the day, there is a problem to solve, and you solve it. You really use your critical thinking skills to lay it all out and see the result, and you move on and solve another problem.
So with that, kind of in a different direction, but what challenges have you faced specifically as a woman in your career, and how did you navigate them?
I think that's been the toughest thing for me, especially in my first decade of career, I would say, right? Um, when you're young, you can be as bold as you want outwardly, but there's just your confidence isn't that formed, right? Confidence comes from experience, and being sure of yourself and the belief, in my opinion, is nobody knows the answer. If anybody that's out there that says, I have the exact answer, I know it all. No, nobody does. Okay. Everybody's really making their best educated, I don't even want to call it guess, right? But their best attempt at understanding the problem and having the best answer. There is no right or wrong answer out there. The problem is, as a woman, a lot more self-doubt than, because it's just, from a societal standpoint, you're being told, right? Like, and you're constantly being challenged to doubt yourself. And so for my first decade, or maybe even 2 decades, that really was the big shadow in the back of my head, the back of my mind. And it was reinforced by, I think when I walked into a room, I was often the only female, right, in a meeting. A lot of the times I felt like my voice was assumed to be lesser than the others in the room, right? Because I was a woman in my 20s or even early 30s, and there were men in their 30s and 40s and 50s, and people make assumptions. People make assumptions that my voice was not as important, right? That I don't have as much to say that would be worthwhile, and so that kind of like feeds into my lack of confidence as well. So I think that was my biggest challenge, is like both building my own confidence as well as externally how people perceived whether my voice was valuable or not, right? And it took some time. I think that was the toughest thing. It took some time to really calibrate, like, as a woman, how do you get your voice heard, right? And I call it calibration, because I went through a period where you notice, like, okay, I'm not getting heard, right? Just because of how I look, right? And how young I was and being a woman. And then I tried different approaches where I think I overcompensated by being really brash, okay? And really getting my voice out there. Well, that was too much, right? So it really took a long time to actually finally calibrate and be okay with, like, you know what? If they don't hear me, whatever, that's fine. They'll see for themselves. Right? Because I went through that period of, okay, I'm not being heard. Yeah, right. And then I try the brash approach. Then I always want to be heard approach. And that doesn't always work well. You don't always need to be heard. And I think now I'm really comfortable in my own skin. It's like, you know what, if you don't want to hear me, that's fine. You'll see for yourself.
And have you had anyone, like mentors or role models, that have helped you with this or shaped your path in any way?
Yeah, absolutely. And I find that extremely important in that whole building and learning your confidence. Early on, in my career, and this is within tech as well as business, I had a couple, but three actually. I want to remember three really, instrumental bosses, right? And surprisingly, they were men. They were men, but like more like father figures. And somehow, somewhere, all three of them saw something in me that I didn't see, right? And I think, my career and my confidence wouldn't be where it eventually went, if I didn't have their support. They were extremely supportive. They were very nurturing in terms of not giving me the answers and letting me build the confidence, early on in my career. So I really am very appreciative of that.
So, how do you define success? Not just professionally, but also personally.
Success is feeling that personal satisfaction. Really, it's not money, it's not title. Really, I really don't subscribe to that at all. It's that feeling of I started with something, right? Wanting to build something, like build a business or build a product or whatever it is, and personally as well. And the satisfaction of going through figuring out how to solve that problem, how to build that thing, right? And and it and the satisfaction of along the way feeling like, oh my gosh, this is so hard. I don't know if I'm going to make it. I don't know if I'm going to be able to figure this thing out or come out with a positive conclusion. And but then to be at the other end of that and seeing your hard work come to fruition, whether it's a product that's launched or built, or a business that might have gone through some hardships but finally thriving, right? That's satisfaction, to kind of look back and go, you know what, I I came, I did, and I conquered, and let's do another one.
So, has there ever been one specific decision or a specific moment that shaped you or your career?
Ooh, okay, shaped me or my career. No, I think it's a really a combination of very small, every decision, right? Um, every piece of trajectory, right? I don't think there's like one monumental aha, this is what shaped my career. But I will say, okay, here's the other one, right? It's the satisfaction of having the confidence of, I don't know everything, but I'm going to tackle it. I'm going to figure this out. Everything is, I know this is not the right word. In my opinion, I finally built this mantra of, you know what? Everything is figure outable. Okay. You just got to stick to it and have that confidence and just like break it down, and everything is possible. So I don't think there was any single moment that led to that, but it's really just, if in time, that really is my mantra, is how hard could it be? Let's just break this down and figure it out. Okay. On the flip side, there's also you on one hand, you have this confidence of, you know what, I could do any of this, right? I can figure any of this out. On the other side is the knowledge that, you know what, I can be deeply wrong, right? And knowing that, and always reminding yourself of like that it's a healthy level of questioning, right? And not necessarily self-doubt, but that you're not always right? You don't want to be blindly and foolishly thinking, oh, I can always figure this out and I'm always right? Yes, eventually, but you also need to look for the potholes and pitfalls. And there is one moment, I will say, and this will date me, right, that really defined my, oh man, was I wrong? Okay, is you have your iPhone, right? Everybody has whatever, Android or iPhone, whatever it is, right? I was there for the first iPhone. Okay. Um, I was working at the time, I was working for a company called Texas Instruments, and we make chipsets, right? The chips and the processors and the Wi-Fi and the wireless components that go inside a phone or many other devices. And at the time, our biggest biggest customer was Nokia, okay? Motorola and Nokia. So this really dates me, right? And this was the age of small phones, small and really thin phones, right? You got to get it faster, cheaper, and smaller, right? And this was when Apple came out and said, you know, they had just had really great success with their iPods, right, for music, and now they're going to get into the phone, right? And their whole concept of this phone that's going to be everything, right? It's not just a phone, but it's almost like a computer, right? And at Texas Instruments, I was, with a group that went in to bid on this first phone, the first iPhone, right? And they came to, they were pretty confident in themselves, right? Usually you go in and there's an engineering technical discussion. But in this case, they actually said, we already built what the iPhone is going to be. Here's how big it's going to be. Here's what it's going to be. And you either design to it or not design, or either you do it or you don't. But we're not willing to change the designs around of what we envision as our first iPhone, right? You redesign yours to fit into ours. And it was going to be way too costly for us to do it and take away from the resources that we would to serve Nokia and Motorola, okay? And at the time, I actually was questioning this giant phone, right? I saw it. They showed us like the prototype, and I was like, what? I was like, this isn't going to work, right? This thing is huge. This thing is heavy and huge. Who's going to want this? This huge phone that now they have no space. You can't put it in your pocket well, right? It's going to take up most of your purse, right? And this thing is like a kitchen sink that, you could take photographs, and you have wireless, wireless LAN, right? Wi-Fi, and be a phone and all this stuff, right? So we ended up not bidding on it. Right. We thought we were making the right decision. Like, no, we cannot divert our resources. We're not going to do this. And so my point in this is years later, I think I'm really wrong. I'm extremely wrong, right? Strategically. So that was it stayed with me. That was a great reminder. You know what? You could always be wrong. And this is one of the biggest things I was wrong about.
Very big iPhones.
Yes, very big. Yeah. But I'm not ashamed to tell people, right? I was so wrong. And it's okay. It's a constant reminder. Like, you're never going to be 100% right. You're going to be wrong sometimes, but don't be afraid to be wrong too.
Just like out of curiosity, Texas Instruments, is that the one that makes the TI-84 calculators?
They are. Yes.
Oh, okay. So everyone has some experience with that. We see that every single day to our despair.
What people do not know, though, is that's like one small part of their business. And just about everything that you use that's electronic has something else that's Texas Instruments inside at some point. So that's what most people don't know, is they make like all sorts of different chips and processors. But their branding really is, you're going to be aware of their branding in the calculators.
So they're not a calculator company, but we just know them from the calculators. Okay.
Exactly. Yes, that's exactly it. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so you've told me about all these different jobs that you've done, especially even being a full-time student and a full-time career person. And how have you managed to manage your work-life balance and avoid burnout in your daily life?
That's also a hard thing. And it took me a while to figure it out, and I still don't have it figured out. If you ask my family, I'm a workaholic. Okay. And, but at some point, I think, so part of my driving decision from stepping away from tech and going into entrepreneurship that's completely non-tech, the burnout actually had something to do with it too. I was completely burnt out at that point. I love tech, but like I told you, I got a little bored with it in terms of, gosh, faster, cheaper, smaller, do it again, right? Next version. It just didn't satisfy me anymore. But at the same time, I worked so hard to basically drive that wheel, right? And I got to a point, this is before I had kids, and your age, right? And I got to a point where I was traveling internationally about 50% of my time. And it was very, very hard, right? I felt very burnt out. And that was another reason why I decided, you know what, I need to step away from this and really recalibrate myself and figure out what else is out there. Now, today, I'm a little bit better, right? And I'm a little bit better. And, managing this work life, there's no one, you can never ask your work to help you balance your work life for you. Work is always going to want more work from you. You give them more work, they want more. Okay, it doesn't matter any job, and I've learned that all the jobs that I've had along the way, it's always going to be that way. You give them great work, they want more, right? You have to set your own boundaries as a person, right? And I think being a parent, right? Becoming a parent became a forcing function for me. I had to be able to draw that line, right? And set that boundary of, you know what? Work is just not going to finish. It's always going to be there, right? And it's going to be there tomorrow, right? Time to put it up, time to be done. And it's time to tend to kids and spend time with family. It is what it is, right? And the work is always going to be there no matter what. And the more you do, the more you're going to have work. So that's what I'd say. Just you got to set your own boundaries. No one's going to do it for you.
And what's a misconception that people may have about women in your line of work?
Women in our line of work, I think it's getting better, okay? But I also think it's still there, unfortunately. I think depends on the industry, right? I think medicine is getting so much better, by the way, right? It's like more women doctors these days than male doctors, right? But in tech, right, in finance, I feel like there's still quite like the finance bro and tech bro culture out there.
I've definitely heard that.
Right? Have you heard that? Tech bro, finance bro?
Finance bro,
right?
yes.
I think there's still a misconception that women can't make the hard decisions, right? There's the misconception that women can't be as bold, right? And be tough. And there's also a misconception that for women, family comes first. Well, family should come first for everyone, right? But somehow there's still a misconception when they see a woman, especially one that has a family, is they kind of presume that family comes first, and they kind of opt the woman out of certain decisions and opportunities because they assume the woman, you know what, she has to leave at 6. So if we need to have a quick like impromptu meeting, count her out. She's gonna need to pick up her kids, right? So I still see that today.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So what advice would you give to young women that are pursuing a similar path as you and might encounter some of these difficulties?
Let them do that. Honestly, you can't change them, right? They're going to be that way. It's how they're brought up. And unfortunately, it's going to take several generations to undo that. And sometimes the certain, I guess, families, out there, they're still propagating that assumption that, women are more family oriented and their places at at home, right? You can't change that. There's nothing you can do about it. You can say it until you're blue in the face and try to change their perception. Just don't waste your time. That's actually what I've learned, right? Instead, what you can do is just be you, be excellent, right? Be excellent, do a great job. Make sure your voice is heard. Don't worry about it. If they think like, well, you're going to be less outspoken, or you're going to not make it's going to be harder for you to make tough decisions. So what, right? Make those hard decisions and voice it, right? And make sure you justify it, right? Make sure you've got everything that you can to back up your decision. And in time, you know what? If they want the business to thrive, they have to listen to good decisions, right? They have to accept excellent work, right? Regardless of the gender. But don't worry about the other stuff. It's always going to happen. That's all I have to say, right?
Yes, it's great advice. And before we end off, I just have one last question. Is there any kind of impact or legacy that you hope to leave in your industry or community?
The impact, I'd like to leave impact in both, professional, right? Like technology. I want to be able to say, and I do tell my children that. And by the way, I don't know if I can say this on your podcast. Your dad was part of it too, right? We were at the forefront of this, the internet wave, right? We drove the ability to access the internet in a faster, more convenient way. And that actually feels good that we were at the forefront of that. And that, to me, at least that's my small part of my impact from a professional sense, right? Same thing as what I'm doing right now. I want to make sure it actually has impact for the future of right now. We are making electronic medical records software systems for fertility care, right? Because right now, fertility care is really difficult to render because the electronic systems haven't kept up. But to say my impact is, so at some point through technology, I was able to improve personal outcomes, right? Like fertility outcomes because of the technologies that we've developed. But it's not just about professional things, right? It's also about your personal impact, right, in the community. And I want to just, I think when I look back, when I can't do anything anymore, right, in my old age, I want to be able to look back and say, you know what, I did my best to be a good human, right, to also do things in the community, philanthropically, or serving with nonprofits, to have made a positive impact in other individuals, right? However it may be. So that's, at the end of the day, that's all I can ask for.
Yeah, that's amazing. And that's also all that I have questions for you today. So thank you so much for coming and talking to me on this podcast. I really, really appreciate you taking your time out of your busy schedule to come tell your story and inspire other young women.
Thank you, and thanks for the interview.
That was Lucy Huang, an amazing role model for us all. I think my key takeaway from this interview was that there's really no right or wrong answer. So don't doubt yourself and don't be afraid to be wrong. Something we would all do good to remember next time we take out our TI-84 calculators. Thank you so much for joining us this time on Impact Economy, the Female Frontier. Looking forward to seeing you again as we interview more powerful women in business.